Hello and a very good morning. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. This is the breakfast news with me, Frank Pereira. Here are this morning's headlines. In pre-Republic Day crackdown, National Investigation Agency arrests 14 sympathizers in simultaneous raids in 4 states. Alert issued for missing car from Pathankot after driver found dead. Prime Minister Narendra Modi breaks silence over Hyderabad student suicide incident, says he has pained HRD ministry to hold judicial inquiry into the death to submit report in 3 months. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to release digital copies of 100 files related to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose on his birth anniversary today. United Nations report on world economic prospects for 2016 says India expected to be fastest growing large economy in the next 2 years. Finance Minister expresses hope in Davos that India can stand out with reforms despite global economic crisis. And massive blizzard begins to hit US East Coast. Record snow expected from Washington to New York. Thousands of flights cancelled. People asked to stay indoors. Our top focus on the bulletin this morning. In a pre-Republic Day crackdown, the National Investigation Agency arrested 14 Islamic State sympathizers and claimed to have averted a major terror attack. The arrests happened in simultaneous raids in Karnataka, Hyderabad, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh. Here's more.
In a nationwide swoop, the NIA, along with the state police forces and central security agencies, arrested 14 sympathizers of the banned terror group Islamic State. Among those arrested is their self-styled chief, Amir. The raids were carried out simultaneously in 4 places, Karnataka, Hyderabad, Maharashtra and Uttar Pradesh, where 14 people had formed the Janood-ul-Khalifa-e-Hind, a terror group having ideologies similar to that of the IS.
अभी जितने भी जो पकड़े गए हैं और जितने भी हमारे निगरानी में हैं और जहां तक हम समझते हैं कि बहुत सालों के बाद इतना ज़्यादा मात्रा में हम लोगों ने क्रैक डाउन किया है हर जगह में, तो एक उसको ये दर्शाता है कि हम लोग कितने एक फोकस तरीके से अपना कदम उठा रहे हैं और इससे देश के लिए एक सुरक्षा का माहौल, एक सुरक्षित देने का जो हमारा कमिटमेंट है देशवासियों को, उसके उस डायरेक्शन में हम लोग चल रहे हैं.
All the arrested accused will undergo detailed interrogation as preliminary inquiry indicates that there was a proper structure to the terror outfit. The NIA and central agency sleuths also recovered 42 mobile phones, explosive material, detonators, wires, batteries and hydrogen peroxide, besides jihadi literature. Meanwhile, the national capital has been put on high alert after the driver of a taxi hired by 3 unidentified persons from Pathankot was found dead in Kangra district in Himachal Pradesh.
I may not be having all the details because this incident has not occurred in Delhi, but suffice will be to say that public must be aware about this incident. They should be aware about this car and the persons who are seen in the footage. If anybody comes across any such person, immediately information should be provided to police.
Security has also been tightened along the border, with personnel stepping up vigil, especially along the border in Punjab. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has broken his silence over the suicide of a Dalit scholar in Hyderabad. Addressing the students at Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar University in Lucknow on Friday, the Prime Minister expressed grief over the death. He also reached out to Dalits, saying that the government was committed to their welfare. Here's a detailed report.
With his government under attack over the Dalit student's suicide in Hyderabad, Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Friday broke his silence on the issue. The Prime Minister said he was saddened by the suicide. Modi was speaking as the chief guest at the convocation ceremony of the B.R. Ambedkar University in Lucknow. His speech saw protests by 2 students who were evicted by the police.
मां भारती ने अपना एक लाल खोया, कारण अपनी जगह पर होंगे, राजनीति अपनी जगह पर होगा, लेकिन सच्चाई यह है कि मां ने एक लाल खोया। इसकी पीड़ा मैं भली भांति महसूस करता हूं।
Earlier, the Prime Minister reached out to the Dalits in his constituency in Varanasi. Modi said his government was committed to the welfare of the Dalits, poor and the oppressed. Addressing a gathering, he said despite being under attack, he was committed to working for the poor.
ये सरकार गरीबों को समर्पित है। दलित हो, पीड़ित हो, शोषित हो, वंचित हो।
The Prime Minister also distributed electronic aid, including e-rickshaws, to differently abled people and called for a change in mindset towards them. He said that people should view special qualities in a person instead of their shortcomings. The Prime Minister also flagged off the Mahamana Express train connecting Varanasi to New Delhi. The train, which is named after Madan Mohan Malviya, will run thrice a week. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the HRD ministry will set up a judicial commission to review the sequence of events leading to Hyderabad University student Rohit Vemula's death. It will submit its report within 3 months. The decision on who will head the commission will be decided in consultation with the Chief Justice of Telangana later. But on the university campus, protests continued against the Vice-Chancellor and the government.
Student protests intensifying across the country over the death of Dalit scholar Rohit Vemula. At the Hyderabad University, angry students are demanding the resignation of Vice-Chancellor Appa Rao for the incident.
Fact-finding committee is an eyewash. Everyone knows that. सब जानते हैं इस मामले में कौन जिम्मेदार है। एचआरडी मिनिस्ट्री ने प्रेशर बनाया है यूनिवर्सिटी के ऊपर इस बच्चों के ऊपर एक्शन लेने के लिए। तो इसमें एचआरडी मिनिस्ट्री बीजेपी लीडरशिप जिम्मेदार है। इनको जरूर इस्तीफा देना होगा। पुलिस को आगे करके हमें बंद करना चाहते हैं।
On Friday, the HRD ministry ordered a judicial inquiry into the circumstances leading to the suicide of Rohit Vemula. This was after the 2-member fact-finding committee submitted its observations. Union Minister Smriti Irani also met Vemula's mother in the morning and conveyed the government's support and share in her grief. But the political parties continue to hold the government responsible.
Mere crocodile tears will not return Rohit Vemula or do justice to him. For doing justice to Rohit Vemula, for eroding the anti-Dalit mindset of ABVP BJP, concrete action would have to be taken.
जो घटना घटी है इसका तो जवाब दें। क्या एक्शन आप कर रहे हैं? काम कौन सा किया आप बताइए ना, कौन काम किया? यही तो देश जानना चाहता है।
देखिए, ये दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण है। हमारी सरकार दलित समाज के उत्थान के लिए चिंतित रहती है। हमारी सरकार ने साफ तौर पर स्पष्ट किया है कि ये मुद्दा दलित और गैर दलित का नहीं है। दुर्भाग्यपूर्ण तरीके से जो विरोधी दल हैं वो जानबूझकर इस आत्महत्या पर सियासत कर रहे हैं।
बीजेपी जो है और संघ परिवार, उसकी पूरी विचारधारा दलित विरोधी है।
Irrespective of whether he was Dalit or not, the way he was treated, whether he was a backward, clearly the ABVP political power was channelized through ministers to mistreat, harass, pressurize and hound the student. And there is yet no answer to that except these kind of innuendos.
में हस्तक्षेप करके जो यूनिवर्सिटी की स्वायत्तता है उस पर भी हमला किया है। इसलिए हमारी मांग है जिनके खिलाफ केस दर्ज हैं उनको उनके पदों से हटाया जाए। श्रीमती स्मृति ईरानी भी इसके लिए जिम्मेदार हैं, उनको मंत्रिमंडल से हटाया जाए।
According to protesting students, the entire sequence of events started last August when the university set up an inquiry against Rohit and 4 other students 2 days after they allegedly assaulted ABVP leader N. Sushil Kumar. Union Minister Dattatreya reportedly wrote to the HRD minister urging action while claiming that the university had become a den of casteist, extremist and anti-national politics. 5 students, including Vemula, were then suspended in September. On January 3rd, they were moved out of their hostel rooms. It was during their relay hunger that Rohit committed suicide. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, the World Economic Prospects 2016 report by the United Nations says that India is expected to be the fastest growing large economy in 2016-17. India's average gross domestic product or GDP has been estimated to grow by 7.3% in 2016 and 7.5% in 2017. The calculations made on a calendar year basis but extrapolated on for the financial year shows China will be increasing its GDP by 6.9% and 6.5% for the next 2 years. In comparison, GDP growth in South Asian countries is expected to grow by 6.7% in 2016 and 7% in 2017. India's economy accounts for over 70% of the GDP in South Asia. The report also estimates that the global growth will be slightly higher at 2.9% in 2016 and 3.2% in 2017. The report has said that India is an exception in the global scene with improved macroeconomic foundations and economic reforms. The report also points out the challenges ahead for the country that includes lack of suitable infrastructure, including energy and transport, delay in big-ticket economic reforms like goods and services tax, and a wide gender gap in employment. Well, let's now get you the latest from the World Economic Forum in Davos. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has expressed hopes that India can stand out with reforms despite a global economic crisis. Meanwhile, world leaders also discussed the escalating threat from Islamic State and other terror groups. Here's a report.
Finance Minister Arun Jaitley optimistic about India's economic future despite a global economic slowdown at the World Economic Forum in Davos. He said India can stand out with reforms and responsible economic planning. Jaitley reiterated India must carry on the structural reforms to once again defy the global slowdown. This even as there is a mood of concern among the global leaders and other participants at the World Economic Forum in Davos. On the sidelines, leaders also discussed the escalating threat from the Islamic State. Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi pledged IS will be largely eradicated in Iraq by the end of 2016, but their presence in Syria will remain a major challenge.
We are winning this war. We have kicked Daesh out of Ramadi. It's not only Ramadi, the city proper, is complete area outside Ramadi, which, to be honest with you, some areas were never under the control of Iraqi security forces for a very long time.
European migrant crisis and climate change also became a topic of discussion at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Bureau Report, Rajya TV.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will release the digital copies of 100 files related to Subhash Chandra Bose on his birth anniversary today. The initiative will meet the long-standing public demand to access these files as well as facilitate scholars to carry out further research on Bose. The National Archives of India also plans to release digital copies of 25 declassified files on Bose in the public domain every month. Prime Minister Modi, in his meeting with members of the Bose family on October 14th last year, had announced that the government would declassify the files relating to Bose and make them accessible to the public. The first lot of 33 files were declassified by the Prime Minister's office and handed over to the NAI on December 4th last year. Moving on now, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi will undertake a padi yatra in drought-hit Bundelkhand today, where he will hold meetings with farmers of the region. Well, Gandhi will arrive in Mahoba district by road from Khajuraho and will walk 7 kilometers and hold a meeting in Supa village to interact with the villagers. He is also scheduled to meet women self-help groups and farmers in Ladpur village. Hit by severe drought conditions, a farmer death is reported every third day from the 13 districts that comprise the region. While the government estimates 40 to 60 farmer deaths last year, locals claim that the number to be at least 10 times higher. Here's a look now at some of the other stories from across the nation in our segment Nationwide. The Maharashtra government has moved the Supreme Court challenging actor Salman Khan's acquittal in a 2002 hit-and-run case by the Bombay High Court in December 2015. The High Court had shot down the trial court's ruling on December 10th and acquitted Khan of all charges and scrapped his 5-year jail term. The appeal filed by State Council criticizes the High Court's ruling on the ground that it ignored Salman's conduct who did not make any attempt to report the accident to the police. Water Resources Minister Uma Bharti said that the centre will strictly ensure environmental flow of rivers and not allow any dam construction or other such activity if a river's flow is less than 1,000 cusecs. She insisted that ponds can be restored if ruined during some construction work, but rivers cannot be revived if its flow was obstructed. While on the cleanup of rivers, the minister said that the centre has earmarked 20,000 crore rupees for sewage and effluent treatment plants. Patel Kota agitation leader Hardik Patel filed fresh bail applications in courts in Ahmedabad and Surat, where charge sheets in 2 sedition cases have been filed against him. His plea contends that the sedition case against him is false, fabricated and politically motivated, and was filed only to suppress the agitation of the Patel community. Hardik Patel is at present lodged in the Lajpur jail of Surat. And it's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
The Nobel Prize, because of the statutes, is only given to 3 people. The Nobel Committee spends a lot of time thinking about it and figuring out which were the key ideas that made something happen. And the more the science is, rapidly communicative, the more these controversies will happen. Do not do anything you're not interested in, because you will never do well.
Watch Eureka with Nobel laureate Professor Venkatraman Ramakrishnan only on Rajya Sabha television.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, the cold wave continues unabated in North India, with northwesterly winds likely to bring down temperatures further over the next few days. A surprising chill also hit Maharashtra's Vidarbha region, with several cities recording minimum temperatures in single digits. Here's more.
Cold wave conditions continue unabated in North India, throwing normal life out of gear. With Kanpur recording a minimum temperature of 6 degrees Celsius on Friday, people did everything they could to battle the cold.
सर्दी बहुत ज़्यादा है, अलाव की व्यवस्था उस तरह है नहीं, न कोई जल रहा है न कुछ, ठंड का बहुत ज़्यादा ठंड है.
Meanwhile, in the national capital, air and rail traffic has been disrupted due to the dense fog. Passengers were stranded at the airport as flights were delayed, with visibility dropping below 50 meters.
Well, my flight's been delayed because of the fog, and it's not looking too good. I'm not really happy with everything. We're out here. The airport hasn't provided us with any accommodation. They're saying we can't go into the main bit. I'm hungry. I'm tired, and I'm very disappointed with how the airport is.
A surprising chill has also enveloped the Vidarbha region. Nagpur recorded a minimum temperature of 7.1 degrees Celsius, while Akola recorded 7.9 degrees Celsius. Several other cities of the region also witnessed minimum temperatures in single digits. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, a huge blizzard has begun to hit the US East Coast. It's expected to dump record levels of snow from Washington to New York. Thousands of flights have been cancelled. People have been warned to stay at home. Washington is expected to be the worst hit. Here's a report.
Streets of Washington, D.C. blanketed in snow. The winter storm has made landfall, threatening record accumulations. Weather monitors warned the monster blizzard could bury parts of Middle Atlantic region under nearly 3 feet of snow and could bring winds up to 30 to 50 miles per hour.
The snow we anticipate is wet and heavy, which means we can expect to see down trees and power lines. The winds are expected to be 30 miles an hour up to 50 miles an hour through Saturday evening, and we believe that we are going to see wind pick up throughout the day.
We're predicting that more than 50 million people will be affected by the snow event alone.
and we're now working very carefully with the emergency management community, other government officials from federal to state to regional, local, the whole spectrum of decision makers out there.
Schools remain shut. Nearly 7,000 airline flights have been grounded. Long queues were seen in front of shops as residents hope to stock up food and other supplies ahead of the massive blizzard in the U.S. East Coast. Washington is expected to be the worst hit.
Well, I came here to try to get some last-minute produce items, and they're either sold out or they chose to put it in storage in anticipation that they'll be closed tomorrow. But unfortunately, I'm coming out empty-handed, so I'll just have to make do with what I have in my refrigerator.
This storm will be deadly. We need people off the streets. So if you expect to see your street to be plowed during the day on Saturday or going through Saturday evening, it's not going to happen. We're going to keep the roads passable. We're going to make sure our emergency crews can get to where they need to. And then come Sunday, late Saturday night, Sunday, depending on the weather, that's when we're going to start in earnest the digging out of the city.
At least 8 people have been killed in snow-related incidents in Tennessee, North Carolina and Kentucky. State of emergency have been declared in Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, the District of Columbia and parts of other states. Over 85 million people are in the path of the huge blizzard, which has life and death implications. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, in other international news, at least 4 people were killed and 2 critically injured in a high school shooting in the remote La Loche village in Canada on Friday. This is Canada's worst school shooting since 14 college students were killed at a school in Montreal in 1989. Mass shootings are relatively rare in Canada, which has stricter gun laws than the United States. While the motive behind the shooting is still not known, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who is attending the World Economic Forum in Davos, said that one suspect is in custody. The number of injured is expected to rise.
The country's heart is breaking for the people of La Loche, Saskatchewan today. There was a shooting in the community. 5 people were killed. 2 others are in critical condition. The situation is no longer active, and the suspected shooter has been taken into custody.
There is 4 individuals deceased as a result of this tragedy, and there are other injuries, and they're being treated by healthcare professionals at this time. I can tell you that we have 1 male in custody, public safety is no longer at risk, and we have secured the firearm.
How old is he?
I'm not going to comment on that. Our investigation is ongoing.
Is he a
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has called for a 30% boost in UN humanitarian funding to $13 billion to deal with the global refugee crisis and insisted that countries can resettle refugees without endangering national security. Kerry joined world leaders on Friday in Davos to address the refugee crisis in the world. Meanwhile, Kerry also said that the sanctions against Russia could be removed within the next few months if Russia cooperates. Kerry and the US Vice President Joe Biden have met with the Ukrainian president recently to help ensure full implementation of the Minsk agreements. The United States and Europe introduced a wide range of sanctions against Russia in early 2014 after the country took a series of military and political moves that severely hurt neighboring Ukraine.
I believe that with effort and with bona fide, legitimate intent to solve the problem on both sides, it is possible in these next months to find those Minsk agreements implemented and to get to a place where sanctions can be appropriately, because of the full implementation, removed.
Well, here's a roundup of the other international news in our World Wrap. Well, the US has decided to set up a new agency to do background checks on employees and contractors following last year's massive breach of security on government files. The Obama administration said it will establish a National Background Investigations Bureau. It will now replace the Office of Personnel Management's Federal Investigative Services. Currently, FIS conducts background investigations for scores of federal agencies. Tunisia has declared a nationwide curfew after 4 days of protests over jobs and economic conditions in the country. In Tunis, demonstrators blocked streets and burned tires. At least 19 people have been arrested so far. This is the worst unrest since an uprising 5 years ago that toppled autocrat Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. Zika virus travel warnings to pregnant women have been extended to 8 more countries. This comes amid concerns over an illness causing severe birth defects. In Brazil, the number of babies born with suspected microcephaly or abnormally small heads since October 2015 have reached nearly 4,000. Authorities believe the spread of the disease is caused by an outbreak of the mosquito-borne Zika virus. Warnings by US health officials now cover parts of Africa and Oceania. Shifting focus to some sports news now, India and Australia will face each other for the 5th and last one-day international at the iconic Sydney Cricket Ground today. The last time the sides met each other at the SCG was during the ICC Cricket World Cup 2015 semi-final in March. India has been defeated in all the 4 previous ODI matches in the series and are looking for a face saver. The Indians came a cropper while defending 3 back-to-back 300-plus totals, and in the 4th match in Canberra, they bungled inexplicably from a position of strength to fail in chasing as well. India in general do not boast of a good record at the SCG. They have won 4 of their 18 games at this venue. Against Australia, it's even worse, and they have won only 1 and lost 13 times.
The morale is pretty similar to how we came initially. Everyone's still trying, still working hard, because we know we're playing good cricket, and we have always believed in the 4 games that we can cross the line, at any stage. So we always knew that, but we haven't been able to execute that, if we have to be really honest.
Well, here's the latest now from the Australian Open. Third seed Garbine Muguruza was bundled out of the Australian Open third round 6-3, 6-2 by Barbara Strykova. Strykova never let Muguruza settle and capitalize on an excellent tactical game to win the match in just 76 minutes. The 22-year-old Spaniard had been considered one of the contenders for the title, but was no match to the Czech, who broke her serve twice in the first set and again in the second on the way to victory. It is the first time the 29-year-old Strykova has made the 4th round at the Australian Open, and she will next meet the winner of the match between 2-time champion Victoria Azarenka and rising Japanese player Naomi Osaka. Well, that's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a good day.